I don't know. I don't know what they're up to. It's just one of those countries where it's like
they're never with
like
us.
They have a cool culture. It's fun.
They're super anti-Israel.
They're funny.
I've seen that. Yeah, they're super anti-Israel. They're
Israel took their embassy out of like Afghanistan, Iraq, and Ireland.
Really? Ireland?
Recently, Ireland. Like Ireland is like one of the most anti-Israel countries that's ever existed. Online, people call it Paddystine because it's like they look at this entirely different scenario with Israel and Gaza, and they're like, that's just like us. No, it's not, but sure. And they're like, that's like us, and we're them, and that's like us. And so they've really like taken a stance. Now then when Trump came in and Trump was like, we're going to turn it into a casino. They were like, Israel was like, oh, okay, great. So Ireland, you're going to take all these Palestinians, right? They're yours now. Like you're going to step up and you're going to take anyone who is a refugee. You're going to welcome them in, right?
No.
And they have a crazy Islamic population now. Like Ireland is very Islamic in terms of compared to how many Irish people are in there, and that's actually quite a few countries out there that's happening.
A lot of those countries not so stoked on it. Yeah,
well, I don't know why everyone's always like, oh yeah, colonizers, Israel's like this big. It's this tiny thing, and it's surrounded by like hardcore Islamic countries. And I'm like, I feel like those are the colonizers. That's like what colonizing looks like to me. And you look at a map and you lay it out on a map.
There? No, Woody, that's a misnomer. All of those nations and people moved there after 1948.
Oh. Lebanon.
People say like, Iran, it was Persia. There's thousands and thousands of years of history there. That sounds like propaganda to me.
Yes.
What are there? Archaeological digs that prove it? Doubt it.
Who do you think built the pyramids? Egyptians?
No, the Egyptians looked around and they were like, we need the hardiest, best manual laborers available to humankind, Jews.
No, I don't.
We need a lot of guys with asthma to get over here.
All these accountants with abacuses in tow.
Yeah,
I don't think it would have gotten the project done on time.
No,
I think we're about to go to war with Iran, though. I think that we in Israel and the Jordanians are about to dogpile on old Iran and do some bombing because they've been moving assets to the region for weeks and weeks. And I think Trump wrote a letter to the Iranians a couple weeks ago, and it was something like he wants the nuclear deal back, but a new nuclear deal. And there was a threat. It was like, do this or. And it wasn't received well by the Iranians, and the Iranians are at the UN. They're like, we don't want war with America, but we'll hit back hard if they hit us. Please no war. And meanwhile, we're flying a third of the B-2 fleet to the Indian Ocean, moving another aircraft carrier strike group into the region from the Pacific. And I've seen all the assets they moved. They moved a THAAD missile system. They moved some Patriot missile systems over there.
I haven't heard many ground assets, just airstrikes.
Yeah,
but well, you say of course not. I've lived through several ground wars in the last 20 years.
We're not going to send ground forces to Iran under any circumstances.
That would be really, that would be bloody. So hopefully it doesn't kick off at all.
We're there. They're there for the nuclear sites. They're there to hit those underground nuclear sites where they're enriching uranium. That's what they're going to do. They're going to blow them up.
Hope not. Hope they don't get a war.
Israel and USA hacked Iran. They hacked into Iran's nuclear systems a while back.
Stuxnet.
Yeah, and it was like that thing where it's like they don't realize that they were hacked. And then Israel, of course, got a little too aggressive with the hack, and it ended up revealing itself, but it set them back for quite a while because they weren't able to do things because their calculations and computation wasn't working. And this had to happen because a USB or something was physically put into a computer. I'm just like, man, that's a different Jew from
the way those
some sick Jew to pose in as Iranian and get into the nuclear reactor and fucking plug in a virus.
Dude, Kyle, you're mentioning the like I didn't know until you told me last week that Missouri has so many of our planes and whatnot in a field here or whatever. And it was sometime a week and a half ago that like 3 days in a row, like the loudest planes I've ever heard in my life were like going over my house, and I don't live anywhere near an airport. And so I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like my windows are almost shaking from how loud and sustained this is. And then you mentioned that they were moving planes around.
150 C-130s went to the Middle East this week. You know what one of those carry? Those giant cargo planes, they could fill them up with tanks. They've been moving a lot of stuff.
That must have been what it was, because there's no other planes that would have made that noise.
Kind of wish we had more allies.
I don't think we have any allies that are capable of the mission that we're about to perform. They're about to go in through an integrated air defense network with S-300 missile systems stealthily and hit targets that are 200 feet below the desert that they're going to detect, I suppose, with some intelligence or satellite thermal shit or magic for all I know, and then blow those up. Nobody else can do what we're doing. That's why they're using $2 billion airplanes. You know, nobody else has any of those.
I just feel isolated. That's all. Like I don't know.
The Jordanians will be there with their F-16s. The Israelis will be there with their 35s and 22s.
Israel, but like I meant like Europe.
What if your allies?
That's why we're doing this. That's what that signal thing revealed, is that Israel's going to sit on its hands and get fucked in the ass. We have to go rescue them and fix the trade routes. That's what would happen though, as far as the Houthis go with the trade route stuff.
If your allies were Russia and China, how would you feel?
What do you? How would I? How would I feel like philosophically, or how would I feel as far as like?
Who are you asking?
Woody, because you said that you wanted allies, and you were like, "What about Europe?" But it was like, "What about Russia and China?"
Historically, Russia and China have not been reliable allies. Like America and Europe, until this presidency, had a reliable relationship where we would be there for one another. But
did you feel like your country was doing heavy lifting in that relationship?
I do feel like we were doing the heavy lifting, but I also thought they'd do their best if the chips, were on the table. Probably fuck that metaphor up. But China, Russia in particular, will lie through their teeth. They will tell lies that we know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. They're not a reliable ally. China has never been an ally of America. If we had a brand new relationship and we had to put that to any kind of test, they wouldn't be what, for example, England, probably our best ally, is always there for us. Canada was one of our best allies. They're not our ally anymore. So no, I don't think that Russia and China are reliable allies, even if they're strong countries.
I don't know what we would hope that France would do for us in this moment, or England or Australia would help us in this moment. They don't have the assets to do the job. It's not as if they were our friends. We might be like, hey, yay. Oh, you're joining the team? Oh, we can fill you in. Hey, you set up the chairs. Yeah, you're the guy that sets up chairs. and France, you got a cooler, right? A big red one. Oh,
you don't? Okay, well, we'll give it to you.
Canada's got one.
We'll give it to you.
Talk to Canada. Here, borrow our cooler, and you can get some ice from Canada. No ice? How much are you charging us for ice, Canada? Jesus.
I can't go toe-to-toe with whose submarines are quieter when it comes to weapon systems with you, Kyle, because this is a hobby of yours and you're a subject matter expert. But I do know that Europe has good weapon systems as well. And they're more than just bringing snacks to the table.
Not for this, though, and not enough numbers, and they can't get them there. That's the other thing. Like, our ability to get our shit there to where the fight actually is, like, the fight's not in France. Like, what's that Raphael's range radius? Is it 1,500 kilometers? Is it 3,000? It wouldn't matter. You're nowhere near Iran. You need something that can land on that island in the Indian Ocean that's 2,400 miles from Iran or something like that. And then it takes off, this B-2, and we're going to refill that thing like 3 times before it comes back. They don't have those capabilities. Like all of the things. They can't do mid-air
refueling?
They don't have the refueling. We could refuel them, sure. But then they don't have the planes. They could. I don't even know if they have the F-18s that we would send in tandem with the B-2s, sending out electronic jamming. They would send like 2 B-2s because each one carries like 2 of those bunker busters, those crazy, ridiculous bunker buster bombs. And then they'd be flanked by like 8 or a dozen F-18s or something, like screaming signal jamming shit everywhere. I just don't know how Europe can help us with that fight. And it's not even like shitting on Europe. It's just if I was putting this war together, it's like, okay, how can Europe help? thoughts and prayers,
When I was when Trump mentioned something about annexing Canada, like casually, like 2 or 3 weeks ago or something like that, France had a nuclear submarine surface like off the coast of Canada, and I was like, wow, that's so like cool, an ally, and they brought their nuclear submarine. I'm like, that's so cool. I think the US has 100.
Yeah, that's
so like what are we doing?
No, this is a purely a PR, as you say.
I watched a
we cannot take
YouTuber,
the United States.
The Navy allowed a YouTuber aboard one of their nuclear attack submarines, and he had to film very carefully because so much of the components and screens are classified. But there was a part where they're going into their dive, and he's like not a tech YouTuber. He's like an information and like tech YouTuber, I guess. So he was like, all right, so we're descending at 8 degrees, and we're going that speed. He's looking at his watch. He's like, we're deep. We're really deep. And he's like, but I can't tell you how deep I even think we went because it's classified.
It's classified.
Yeah,
that'd be spooky. I wouldn't want to be on a sub.
Exactly. I always thought being on a submarine would be scary as hell, and it'd be like rough living. But he lived with them for, I don't know, it seemed like several days, maybe a week, and you completely lose track of your day-night cycle, and pizza night becomes the thing. He's like, pizza night is how he glued his time frame and his whole week together. He's like, I was like, all right, it's been 3 days since pizza night. Okay. But they had like great food, a decent amount of space. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't cramped. And like their mess hall, like where they would eat, there's like TVs in there. And the guys are one of those. He's like, we play Magic the Gathering and cribbage every night. And I'm like,
sick.
That's amazing.
That sounds pretty fun. How big was the mess hall you ate in, Harley?
There are parts of it that I can't fully stand up.
That's what I wondered.
Parts of it, but like the mess hall was one of the higher ceiling building places like in that I had gone on. It wasn't a submarine. It was a like the big ass ships that you can like have planes fly off of and stuff, like a carrier.
Carrier. Okay.
Yeah. But there are so many doors and walkways and places that are so cramped and tight, like crazy cramped and tight. And I spoke with a guy who was in the Navy, and he worked on like a battleship. And I was like, oh, like tell me some crazy shit. And he was like, you want to know something crazy? He was like, when we go out in the water, he's like, sometimes like we pass a Chinese ship and they're allowed to be there too, but we're allowed to be there. And like, so we all man our stations and they man their stations probably. And like we coast by each other and we just look at each other and like pass. And he's like, but I've been doing this for years. And he's like, what's been happening recently is like, we don't know a Chinese ship is there until we see it. He's like, and when you could see the ship, that's a problem. You're already too close. You're supposed to know before you visually can see it. He's like, so there have been a couple times where we physically see a ship and then we're rushing to our stations and they kind of like just materialize out of nowhere. And he's like, and I don't know if like, he's like, maybe like my ship doesn't have the capabilities, or maybe the higher ups on my ship are aware and they're not telling us. He's like, maybe back home, the brass knows about this and there's something there. He's like, whatever. He's like, I'm just saying that like, there is some technologies out there that are like making great strides forward that we may or may not be aware of. When I think of like Trump and how much he likes power and how much he seems to be a fan of Russia, and how much he's changed on China compared to like his first time in office, I'm like, I think he's trying to do like a China-Russia maneuver. I think he wants to be like China and Russia. I think he wants to like hopscotch over Europe, bypass Europe, and be friends with China and Russia instead, and be like big three dominators of the world. And like, I mean, if I were playing Ritz,
I like that. That sounds like a basketball team.
Oh, we get to be number one.
Well,
of the triumvirate, we have to be the clear one.